Okay, I think now we're good. Sounds like we were having some trouble connecting. All right, let's get started. Um, Let me know in chat if you can see me. Paul, I see you say looking good, so that must mean I'm on. And let me know if you can hear me as well. All right, mic volume down a little bit. Adjust that. Okay, how's that? Any better? Okay. I'll keep talking. Let me know if I need to adjust anything. Okay. So just good morning, everyone from Portland, Oregon, and good afternoon if you're far enough east. Shout out to my grandkids in New Jersey if they happen to be listening in. Hi, Deacon and Hazel. My name's Daniel Portis-Cathers, and I'm honored to be involved in this unique online fundraiser for Community Rights US. Also in Fuegos, thanks for asking me. I'm excited to see how it goes. So far, the presentations have been really interesting and engaging. Some housekeeping, if you're just joining us or need to be reminded. Sounds like, Paul, you could use some more volume, so I'll get that turned up here. Okay, let me know if that's okay. And I'll check in again in a second. You're welcome to ask questions or comments in the chat, and I believe that everyone can see all the chat questions and comments, but I'm not sure. I'll check every now and then and try to answer any questions that seem relevant for everyone. And also there's a significant lag time, maybe 10 to 20 seconds between my speaking and your hearing, same with video. So just keep that in mind. So, quick introduction of myself. My career has been in composition and music production for film and television. I haven't scored any big films, but my pieces have been used on a wide variety of programming. You can visit my website at deepseamusic.com. Turn this up just a little bit more, and hopefully that will come through. I have been deeply involved in music technology since the mid-80s. A few years back, I was contracted by Apple to help develop a music recording platform called GarageBand, which I think is still included with every new Mac, I'm not sure. And also I helped with its parent program, Logic Pro. I created several software instruments for GarageBand, composed music using that platform, which they then used to market the program, and in addition, produced several pieces of music that you may still find on your computer if you own a Mac in a folder called Jingles. Today I'll be hosting 2 hours in which I'll be reviewing lots of music technology that I use to create music. This is an amazing time to be alive as a composer, really as a musician of any kind, whether you're a performer or a producer or a composer. New software is being released on literally almost a daily basis, and happily an amazing amount of it is free. So if you have an inclination to experiment, there are lots of amazing products to try that you can find online for free download. This first hour, I'm going to demonstrate something called looping, which has been around for decades. I was involved in it back in the 80s. It's, of course, evolved in very sophisticated ways by now. I'll demonstrate some virtual traditional instruments and some of the latest techniques for making them sound realistic. Things like orchestral instruments, guitar, keyboards, drums, and percussion, and possibly voice. Hour 2, I'll show some experimental instruments on the Reactor platform. These instruments are striking visual displays and highly original approaches to composition and sound design. And then we'll have a couple breaks. I'll run a 2-minute video describing the work of Community Rights US. I hope you'll do some research by visiting their site if you're not familiar with their work, and that you'll consider supporting them financially. Okay, let's get started. Paul, you're saying that my volume or my mic has some white noise interference. So I think I'm going to try turning it down actually instead of up, since it may be overdriving. I'm not sure if white noise, by that you mean overdriving. And okay, I'm seeing a comment. Paul, turn up your volume. I'll turn mine down. All right. Let me know if this is good. And I'm going to move on to demonstrating the instruments now, demonstrating some looping. So right off, I said I worked on a program called Logic Pro. And this, for me, is where I do all of my work. It's sort of the mission control brain that makes much of what I do possible. Although many of the same tasks can also be accomplished in its little brother, GarageBand. So this is called a digital audio workstation, DAW for short. It records audio, virtual instruments called MIDI instruments, and does intelligent looping. So I also use it to mix and master pieces for a final product, to submit a final product. And so it uses what's called effects, reverbs, delay, compression, EQ, panning, which means left and right, filtering, things like that. So right now I'm going to demonstrate the looping, which is, let's see, Apple has huge resources for looping. And my goal in this will be to create a short piece of music using random loops from Apple's loop library, which I'm going to open here. And if you look down in the bottom right corner, you'll see this number, 29,788. That's how many loops I have loaded into this library. So what I've done is I've taken about 150 and just thrown them into a group here. And I'm going to take these just randomly and try to create a 16-bar interesting loop composition. So loops will snap to the current tempo that I have set in the DAW, which at the top you can see is 100 beats per minute. And I've also set the key to C minor. So the loops will snap both to the key and to the tempo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with some percussion, and I'm going to add some melodic elements, mixing and matching as I go, and we'll just see what we come up with. This is going to be totally on the fly here. So I'll find some things that I like and drag them over. Okay, I'll try that right away. So there's one. Let's see what else I find here. Sure, why not? Okay, so already I've got some percussion. Let's go with something melodic. Let's try. So the way I audition those is I play the loop that I've already got up there. And I'll add that. Sounds like it'll work. Then let's try something else here. How about, let's see if I can find some guitar riffs. So as you can see over here on the right, it tells what key it was recorded in. These are live instruments being recorded. So this was recorded in the key of E at 80 beats per minute, which isn't anywhere close to what I've got my piece set to, but it should lock in. Okay, so let's see what happens. Okay, great. Here's another one. I'll just throw that up there as well. And let's see. Maybe I'll do one or two more. Something synthy-like. Let's try that. And then we'll create something on the ending. For an ending, let's go up here. I saw a beatbox somewhere. Let's try something like this. This will work. Give it some space. And then maybe add something called a riser. So risers, you can see what they do. Let's get something shorter here. Let's take this shorter. And that's another one. Get rid of that one. All right, let's see what happens here. Let's see what kind of piece we've got. So the goal was to get everything to lock into tempo and to lock into the key. Okay, so let's move on to the next one. We've got a lot of instruments to demonstrate. So I'm just going to get rid of all of that. And move on to our first instrument, which is put out by a company called Spitfire. Open it up here. And okay, sounds like you're able to hear that. Good. Okay, so this Spitfire Audio's BBC Orchestra is a collection of beautifully sampled instruments placed around a real orchestral hall. So just beautiful orchestral instruments. And I've loaded some cellos. And I'm going to demonstrate, just play that sound here, chord progression. Turn on the instrument. And what's going on here? Instrument is on. So, all right, our first technical challenge. Let's get rid of that. My life is full of these little questions. Did you plug it into the wall? And let's try that. For some reason it's not playing, but I am seeing it down there. Oh, here we go. All right, got it. All right, here's a chord progression. Okay, that was beautiful, but there are ways to make it sound better. And an important way to do that is by using an effective controller. It's called a controller. So I don't know if you can see this, but I've got something around my neck here. And this is called a breath controller. And I can blow into it. I can bite down on it. I can tilt my head sideways, or I can tilt my head back and forth. And all of those movements can be assigned to control aspects of the sound. So in this case, I just assigned breath control, and I'll show you how that works. Playing the same progression. All right, let's move on to another instrument. Actually, I'm going to delete that so I get more resources back from the computer, because this is really resource hungry. All right, Sonoscore has created an instrument called simply the orchestra. This is an 80-player orchestral library that uses what they call an ensemble engine to combine instrument sections to create complex orchestral colors and rhythms. So I'm going to give you, this is one of many sort of compositions that they've put into this plugin. Down below you'll see colored keys, and those just delineate different, I guess, divisions to alert you to where some of the sections, instrument sections, end. Let me play this. Well, I heard it breaking up there too. I'm sure you did as well. I think with streaming this live and the computer resources that are required in order to operate this, it was really chewing up a lot of bandwidth. So I'm going to delete that one as well. Okay, let's go to another instrument. This is called, I think, woodwind ostinato or ostinato woodwinds. Okay, the way this works is you simply play a chord. Well, just the whole idea of this is it's a phrase library for woodwind motifs. So it has a real specific use. And this library it has different voicings, different rhythms, and expression, which are difficult to make sound realistic on a keyboard. So it uses what it calls rhythm building blocks and chord inversions by triggering keyboard notes outside the instrument playing range. You can mix, match, and mute all of these on the fly. And again, down below you see these different colored keys. The blue keys are the only area where I play a chord. The rest of the keys are all triggers, and they are assigned to different functions, like which notes in a chord are being played and which wind instruments are playing those notes, what inversion is being played in a chord, how it's spread between the instruments and ranges, and then different rhythmic patterns that sound realistic because they were actually recorded being played by real players. So here's an example of this. I'm triggering some things, so I'm going to trigger playing first inversion, this F chord, F major chord, which you can see is shown here. When you play a chord, shows it for you. Now here's a little simple rhythm. I'll go to another inversion. Now I'll add in some other notes into the same chord. Okay. Move on to something called modal runs. This also is a pretty specific instrument. So the idea here is that realistic runs are hard to produce with a conventional virtual instrument. Fast runs especially are hard to play if you're not an accomplished pianist. So this instrument was created to make realistic fast runs with strings and woodwinds, which are commonly used in an orchestra for creating runs. The runs adapt to the chord that you play and to the tempo set for your composition. So I'll again play a chord, hold it down, and then I'll play two notes. And those notes stay in the key that you're playing. So if I play, that was an F chord, if I play an A flat chord and play the same notes that I played, it plays a slightly different scale. It plays the A flat scale. There's a G chord. If I want it to be only woodwinds, I move this bar here and choose just the woodwind sound. I want to focus more on the strings, I just slide that down. So it's a very specific type of instrument, but very useful in helping to enhance the realism of your programming. So realism isn't always what you want to achieve, but in cases of traditional instruments, it is. So here's another example. Let's go with this is going to load a guitar. This instrument is there are lots of virtual instruments that focus on guitar sounds. This one is specifically dedicated to strumming. So let's add that up to the top. And then you'll be able to see the keys and how it divides up the key triggers. Okay. Turn it on. And let's try 2, so channel 1. You know what I'm hearing? What I'm hearing in the background is still those string sounds. I'm going to mute that. So that. So the different key triggers accomplish different things. I was triggering the red keys, which are strumming patterns. The yellow keys are just open strums. Okay, let's move on to a different guitar program that I've used quite a bit, and this one relies heavily on key triggers. This is called Ample Guitar, and they've created an entire library of stringed instruments that respond to key triggers. And the triggers enable things like harmonics, muted notes, hammer-ons and pull-offs, slides, strums, squeaks, and noises. So right away, I'll first go to the strums. And record, and then so it has a whole different method for creating your own strums, programming those in. And then if you want to play individual notes, I just put together a little composition here that demonstrates that. And I'll expand the notes so that you can see what they look like down below here. So all of this what you see down here, these are the notes on something called a piano roll. And all the blue notes, these are, if you see over on the left, there's a keyboard. These just correspond to a particular key, note on the keyboard, and a position in the timeline. Maybe they're eighth notes or quarter notes or 16th notes. But all the blue notes are real low on the keyboard, out of the guitar range, and they just serve as triggers for telling these notes what string they're being played on, whether they're a harmonic, whether they're a slide, or a hammer-on, or a pull-off, just to help create that realism. But all of those sounds have been sampled. Sample is just a recording term for recording. So a player has gone into a studio and played each of these notes single. So they go all the way up and down the fretboard, playing each note one at a time with different techniques, like soft, medium, loud, a buzzing, a hammer-on, a slide, a thump, a muted note, lots of them. So let's play this. So I'm a guitarist, and this is useful for me because I know what a guitar should sound like. I work out the sound on the keyboard, and then if I need to change key or change tempo or adjust notes to work with other parts better, then I can move notes around to make that happen. So this is very useful for me, and I've sampled lots of guitars and created lots of virtual guitar instruments. Here's another example of just another kind of guitar that Ample Sound has created. This is a classical guitar, and again, a little composition here. Great. Okay, so far I'm not crashing, and that's a good sign. Using lots of resources, but staying alive. Okay, this next instrument is put out by a company called Spectrasonics, and it's called Omnisphere. Spectrasonics plugins are some of the most popular on the market. They've spent almost 30 years recording musicians from around the world, creating original sounds and developing incredibly versatile digital instruments. A project I developed years ago called Heart of Africa that is included as part of this particular instrument. So this is Omnisphere. I'm just going to play a sound for you here. Sound. They just call it machine. I mean, there are thousands, probably 10,000 sounds in this plugin of a whole wide variety of sounds, electronic and acoustic. But this is one of your sounds. So I'll just play one note here. So it evolves beautifully over time, and that's just holding down one key. And what you're seeing on the screen is called an arpeggiator, and the arpeggiator is extremely sophisticated. Now if I take that off, if I turn off the arpeggiator, you just get this. You still hear sort of a delay, so I'll turn off the delay. That's just an effect. and play the sound. That's all I get. That's all that sound is. When you add the effect and the arpeggio, so if we move to another sound, this sound, I'll take the arpeggio off first and play it. Not much there. You can do some crazy things with the sounds. This is called the orb. And you can program that to do all sorts of things. Change pitch, change filtering, change volume. And if I turn the arpeggiator back on in this, here's what you get. So if I play those together, you get this. Great. Another instrument that Spectrasonics created quite a few years ago is called Stylus RMX. And this instrument has continued to evolve so that it's stayed current. But let's see, it's based on recorded loops that have been chopped into small bits and assigned to individual notes on the music keyboard. So when these notes are played sequentially, they effectively create the original loop. And the big difference is that now the bits can be moved around rhythmically and in pitch, and they lock to the current tempo of your DAW, your digital audio workstation. So this technique is called groove control. So here's a sound. This is just a loop that's been chopped up. And if I drag that loop out onto the track, this is what you see. Expand that. So this is one loop of that sound chopped up into bits, spread out on the keyboard in succession so that it sounds like the original loop, because it's little bits of that recording strung together. Again, here's the sound. Well, I'll play it now on the track. So if I click on one of those notes, it has different parts of that sound. So forth. Now if I add another sound to that, let's try this one. What I was doing there was I'm on what's called the chaos page, and I had that on. So I turned it back off and play the sound again. I'm going to go back to that sound so that I can get the MIDI, it's called the MIDI data, drag it to the track. So it's there. Then I'm going to turn on this chaos again. And what it does is it allows you to reverse the sound in little sections, repeat little patterns, or make it even buzz. So that's what this sounds like. can just get as crazy as you want. On to some more percussion goodness created by a company called Cinematic. And this instrument is called Damage, and you'll see why when I play it. Basically, these are huge drum sounds that they've taken into a huge recording studio, or probably a hall, and these really aggressive loops are tailored for big action films and movie trailers. So you can play those sounds, and then they've also added effects. So if I trigger these purple or red notes at the top, I do more damage to the sound, like distort them or cause them to stutter or to phase in some way. So lots of really creative things that you can do with the sounds once they're in this plugin. To me, this is exciting stuff. I mean, I literally can spend all day and night on this, and I have to stay focused to get the job done and stop experimenting. Sort of have to set some limits on yourself. Okay, now let's see. I'm gonna play the video. Before I do this next section, I'm gonna play the 2-minute video. Time has passed quickly, of course. For me anyway, I hope you've been enjoying this. I'm gonna give you a chance to watch the 2-minute Community Rights US video and take a quick break, and I'll be back right after the video.
Did you know it's illegal for local governments to pass laws that protect their communities from controversial corporate activities like oil pipelines, genetically modified crops, fracking, and clear-cut logging?
Did you know that corporations have more constitutionally protected rights than people do?
Enter the community rights movement.
Since 1999, 200 towns, cities, and counties in 9 states have passed locally enforceable laws that ban specific harmful corporate activities and put decision-making back in the hands of local people.
We want to bring this incredibly successful community-based strategy to every community in this country.
We've assembled an amazing network of people and organizations to provide communities with the support and training that they need to run successful community rights campaigns.
Our work transcends conventional single-issue activism. We think of it as a rights-based strategy, which allows progressives and conservatives to have a much easier time coming together to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents and the local environment. Community rights lawmaking can protect our right to clean water and safe food, our right to free and fair elections, our right to living wage jobs, and our right to a renewable energy future.
But this movement is about more than just reclaiming our local lawmaking. It is also about catalyzing a profound culture shift.
Imagine the possibilities in your community if more and more of your neighbors and coworkers could envision themselves as taking an active role in the governance of their own communities.
We are, in fact, we the people. That is where our ultimate power and authority resides.
Your contribution will greatly expand the reach of the community rights movement.
Thank you for your support and for sharing our fundraising campaign with others.
Great. I hope you'll take the chance to take the time to research Community Rights US if you're not familiar with the organization already, and consider helping them out financially. After all, this is a fundraiser, and we encourage you to consider digging deep and helping the cause. All right, back to the demonstration here. I think we're pretty much on time. So the last virtual instrument I want to demonstrate in this hour is called Easy Keys by TuneTrack, which is kind of a cheesy name, but doesn't matter. More than keyboard instrument, this is a powerful songwriting tool, and I've really just discovered it recently. It's not immediately apparent how it's anything special, but once you start digging into the different performance styles available in the browser, the possibilities become pretty exciting. So what I'm going to do is, this is the playing area here where my mouse is. I'm going to just open the browser. It's called the browser. This is the keyboard. Just a simple keyboard sound. But if you go into the browser, you'll see that they've created all of these performances in different styles. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just open up one of these performances and grab a simple progression that they've played in. And I'm going to drag it down here to the playing area. And you see this red line above right there. That is what I'm going to loop, the part that I'm going to loop. And you hear simple but nice progression. Now, what I want to do with that is get some variations on that. I'm not, by any stretch of the imagination, a very good keyboardist. I think that would be too generous. I do a lot of playing on the keyboard to input instruments parts, but then I end up tweaking them forever. So if I want to get a certain style, I either have to try to do it myself or hire someone. And I hired lots of people to play parts, and I love bringing in live players. But this, if for nothing else, is an amazing tool for experimenting and seeing what a progression sounds like in a certain style. So let's go to the verse, and here's the second variation. Let's see what that sounds like using the same notes. Okay, not much different. If I go to the third variation, let's see what happens. Oh, that's why it's not different. It's because I have to turn on, I have to hit this button. Okay, there we go. Now, if I choose a variation, I can play that progression with that style. Go to the next variation. Great. So now, what if I wanted to try a different style of music? Well, let's take the soul R&B and swing it, and maybe choose a verse or let's say a chorus out of that, and variation number 3. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Variation number 4. Let's see how that changes things. Okay, let's go to some gospel. So I saw gospel there. Let's try a verse out of this piece. Maybe this variation. Variation number 2. Okay, this is gospel. Okay, and let's try one more. How about some blues? And let's swing it. Let's try something from this piece. Variation number 3. So it gets pretty realistic sounding, and what to me is so creative about this is that they've figured out a way to capture performance and translate it to any progression that you throw at it. So I can create my own progressions, and I can drag those in here and see how they'll sound in a certain style of music. We even have little endings. So let's see what a blues ending sounds like. That's, of course, I mean, that progression is not a good ending progression, but gives you an idea of the style. If we, let's see what a wiggy ending sound like. Okay, great. Let's take a quick break here before I head into hour 2. I appreciate your listening. Glad you got on and joined us this morning. So we'll take a little break. I'll be right back.
Did you know it's illegal for local governments to pass laws that protect their communities from controversial corporate activities like oil pipelines, genetically modified crops, fracking, and clear-cut logging?
Did you know that corporations have more constitutionally protected rights than people do?
Enter the community rights movement.
Since 1999, 200 towns, cities, and counties in 9 states have passed locally enforceable laws that ban specific harmful corporate activities and put decision-making back in the hands of local people.
We want to bring this incredibly successful community-based strategy to every community in this country.
We've assembled an amazing network of people and organizations to provide communities with the support and training that they need to run successful community rights campaigns.
Our work transcends conventional single-issue activism. We think of it as a rights-based strategy, which allows progressives and conservatives to have a much easier time coming together to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents and the local environment. Community rights lawmaking can protect our right to clean water and safe food, our right to free and fair elections, our right to living wage jobs, and our right to a renewable energy future.
But this movement is about more than just reclaiming our local lawmaking. It is also about catalyzing a profound culture shift.
Imagine the possibilities in your community if more and more of your neighbors and coworkers could envision themselves as taking an active role in the governance of their own communities.
We are, in fact, we the people. That is where our ultimate power and authority resides.
Your contribution will greatly expand the reach of the community rights movement.
Thank you for your support and for sharing our fundraising campaign with others.
Okay, welcome back. If you're just joining us, my name's Daniel Portis-Cathers, and I'm going to spend the next hour talking about some experimental instrument plugins that I use from time to time in my recording work, soundtrack work, just recording in general. These are more experimental, so I don't use these very often, but they are fascinating to play with and help me to just come up with new ideas. There's so many creative ways to get going on a music piece if you're looking for inspiration. And it's in fact easy to get lost in just experimenting and looking for more virtual instruments and never actually sitting down and doing some composing. So I have to put limits on myself and be disciplined about about the process and about being willing to focus on what I'm trying to accomplish. But these instruments open up so many possibilities. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this instrument. It's a new one that I just discovered recently. It's called Quadra. And I'm not going to explain most of these instruments. Mostly I'm just going to play them. But in this case, what this instrument does is it has 4 different instruments playing at the same time. They're all either muted stringed instruments or harmonic stringed instruments playing harmonics. And they have 4 different, what's called sequencers in them, which are just little recording platforms so you can create patterns and melodies and ostinatos. And I'll just play an example of one. And I'm just playing one key here. Okay, I played 2 keys. I'm going to go to one that I'm going to use and play a little piece eventually. First thing I'm going to do, however, and I'll play that piece for you once it loads here. So this is just another preset. So those have all been, those are 4 instruments playing at the same time, and patterns have been sequenced into this so that it creates this rich, repeating phrase. So I'm going to come back to this, but what I'm going to do is move on to another instrument that you might consider using in conjunction with this, and this is called M-Voice. And let me bring up a description of M-Voice here. So M-Voice released this product, M-Voice 1 it's called, dubbed by the company as the world's most realistic vocal synthesizer. This plugin is free actually to download, although only a limited range of notes can be played until a full voice is purchased. So I've just downloaded the free version, and this is what it looks like. And what I've done is I've gone ahead and put in some notes. So the company's first voice is called Lucy. You see up here in this corner. And Lucy was created through sampled vocal performances, contrasting the usual methods of modeling techniques to create vocal synthesizers. So it's a real voice. M-Voice recorded the elements that make up individual phonemes at multiple pitches. And using these elements, you can dictate Lucy's speech and pronunciation, and you can create even your own words from the phonemes. So M-Voice 1 runs on a cloud-based engine, which reconstructs thousands of samples as you work, returning the complete vocal to your digital audio workstation over the internet. So what you're hearing when you listen to M Voice 1 isn't artificial. It's a real singer's voice recombined to interpret the words that I write in. So even breath sounds are generated to work realistically around the notes. So what I did was I put the notes in, then I typed in a phrase. You only want to be alone. So let's just play that by itself. I will mute, let's see, this instrument. Okay.
You only want to be alone.
Okay. So let's say I want to change the lyrics. Type in some new lyrics like about I want to fly. I want to fly. And then here I'll put to fly away. Let's see how that sounds.
I want to fly away.
So I'm still learning how to program this thing, the vibrato, for example, or the scoops, or how long to hold a word before you need to take a breath. Breathing is important when you program instruments. I even with stringed instruments, I think in terms of how I would sing a phrase. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to mute that one, and I am going to open a different one that I've already programmed in with a different set of lyrics. Okay, and this took me a while to do this. Like I said, I'm just learning how to do it. But before I play that, I want to introduce this other instrument called the SWAM, Swam Cello. I forget what SWAM stands for, but this is by a company called Audio Modeling. And until recently, most virtual instruments have been based on either sampling, which is recorded sound, or synthesis. But a different type of technology known as physical modeling, which has been around for years but has evolved and become really advanced recently. It analyzes the sound of an instrument and reproduces it digitally down to the smallest detail. This allows the end user a lot more flexibility and expressivity without using up near the amount of computer resources. But also, if you record a sample, so someone doing a slide on the cello, for example, it's a recording and it's what it is. You can't really do anything with it. You can't not slide. So what if you want to be able to slide and introduce vibrato and volume as you go in your performance? With this instrument, you can do that. So if I play, it's a pretty static note, right? But if I use my breath controller, I've got it programmed to change volume with my breath and change vibrato or add vibrato when I bite down. So then it becomes really expressive. And also, depending on how fast I play the note from one to another, it slides. So what I'm going to try to do here is play a little piece using these lyrics and the quadra instrument that I introduced earlier. Let's turn that back on. And let's get the cello back up here. Okay.
If I could fly, I would only fly to you. I would only fly to you, to If I could fly, I would only fly to you. I would only fly to you, to
Okay. And obviously, I'm not a cellist, but with a little work, and I'm actually pretty new to this breath controller thing. I'm glad I'm not a smoker because it takes some lung power to hang in there. But and I'm not much of a keyboard player, but you hopefully got a sense for how expressive an instrument like that could be with the right piece of hardware doing the expression. All right. So I'm going to move on now to the experimental instruments. And what I'm going to do here is just start pulling them up and playing them. I'm not really going to explain what they are or how they work. I'm just going to let you watch them and listen to them and be fascinated with the incredible creativity that has gone into creating these things. Feel free to ask questions. I'm going to be busy opening and closing these things, but if I can, if you have a question, I'll try to address it. Probably more toward the end, however. All right, here we go. Turn that off. All right, here we go. Now, hopefully. Sorry, I'm going to see if I can restart something here to get rid of that lag. Sorry about this, people. It's really struggling. Stop for just a moment. Now back on. I'll just try to limit the number of instruments that I use. think I'm going to take a short break here and reboot something and finish this off. I'll play the video and be right back.
Did you know it's illegal for local governments to pass laws that protect their communities from controversial corporate activities like oil pipelines, genetically modified crops, fracking, and clear-cut logging?
Did you know that corporations have more constitutionally protected?
Enter the community rights movement.
Since 1999, 200 towns, cities, and counties in 9 states have passed locally enforceable laws that ban specific harmful corporate activities and put decision-making back in the hands of local people.
We want to bring this incredibly successful community-based strategy to every community in this country.
We've assembled an amazing network of people and organizations to provide communities with the support and training that they need to run successful community rights campaigns.
Our work transcends conventional single-issue activism. We think of it as a rights-based strategy, which allows progressives and conservatives to have a much easier time coming together to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents and the local environment. Community rights lawmaking can protect our right to clean water and safe food, our right to free and fair elections, our right to living wage jobs, and our right to a renewable energy future.
But this movement is about more than just reclaiming our local lawmaking. It is also about catalyzing a profound culture shift.
Imagine the possibilities in your community if more and more of your neighbors and coworkers could envision themselves as taking an active role in the governance of their own communities.
We are, in fact, we the people. That is where our ultimate power and authority resides.
Your contribution will greatly expand the reach of the community rights movement.
Thank you for your support and for sharing our fundraising campaign with others.
Okay, while I've got this rebooting, just want to say thanks for your patience. I knew this was going to be challenging with video and streaming and lots of audio resources being required. But hopefully this reboot will get us back up here, and I'll spend the last 10 or 15 minutes seeing if I can make this happen. But meanwhile, go grab your wallet and think about contributing to Community Rights US and their good work. And thanks for joining us today. I'm going to see if I can get this back up and running right now. See where we left off. It's not liking that. Let's just turn that one off. Let's see if I can play them one at a time. At least you can see what these things do. I'm just playing one note here. Let's go back to a couple of the instruments that I used earlier. And actually, let me get back to where I can see chat. Okay. And I'll just run through a couple of what these do just individually. So this one at the beginning, this is called Node E. And the way it operates is that, let's get some volume going here. So we have to start the sequence in order for it to work. We have to start playing. So let me do that. So I've got this. This is what I would call a sequencer, an intelligent sequencer. I've got it running, I've got a guitar sound running through it, and what it does is it selects notes and plays them based on when these nodes cross certain boundaries. And I've got a mode down here that indicates if they're going out toward the outside of the boundary, that's when they'll play. So you watch when it reaches the edge, it triggers and turns solid. And it'll come back in, it won't trigger again until it crosses boundary going out. Now if I add more nodes, and increase the frequency, you see that I can constrain it to a certain key. This is in the key of E, using a 6-tone scale, with E as the root note. I can hear it already starting to lag, so I'm going to shut that one down. I'm going to open up another one called Spiral. And you saw that one going a little bit earlier. And with this one, I've run a piano sound through it. I've plugged, I can do that again. So I have this piano sound that I'm running through it. And it has certain, it again has some nodes, and which it calls objects. And I can choose how many objects. And you'll see I'm also in a key of E minor. I can change that to a different type of scale. These are modes. There's E major. This defines the range of pitches. This is the spread, so it's high and low. One thing that's happening is my breath controller seems to be affecting it, so I'm taking that off. That might have been what was going on the rest of these, and why it was creating the lagging. See if I can get something else going there. Not liking that. There's so many other fun things to show you. Computers are a challenge. You know, what we're trying to do today is really incredible when you think about it. There was a time when I was working for Apple, probably 10 years or so ago, when I did not have a computer that could run what I wanted to run on it. And of course, the resources were so much lower then. There was a time when I was first working on this looping and electronic music in the 80s, where it cost several $100s to buy, I think it was like 1 megabyte of storage for an instrument. My first electronic instrument, it was a serious investment. It cost me $8,000. And what I can do now for free online is 100 times what I could do with that instrument back then. So the progression has been amazing. Without streaming, this all works. And we did some testing beforehand, and it was working. But there are challenges. Who knows, how how my internet connection is working today, and that could be a part of it. But so those are a lot of the challenges. I remember the first few years that I really plunged into this. I took out a bank loan, bought a couple of keyboards, a computer, and a couple of other things. And I spent the next 6 months just reading manuals. I had a stack of manuals, a foot and a half high on my desk. And I remember having a crick in my neck for the next year and a half from that. But at the time, I was trying to figure out how to sync music with film and video. And at that time, everybody had a different way of doing it. You had to reinvent the wheel. There were all these different approaches to making that happen. And it was just so hard. Now I could literally open up this program, drag a video in, and I'm locked. I could use my dog's paw to make it happen. Rest in peace, my dog is Elena. I don't need her, I guess. Ouch. No offense, Prima. Anyway, so, it's just part of it. Learning to troubleshoot is such a huge part of this job for people who get involved in video and sound production, building websites, working on the internet. It just requires a lot of patience, the willingness to sit and tweak things for hours. People have often asked me if they could come and watch me work sometime. And I've learned to politely answer that by saying, you wouldn't last very long, because I am tweaking the same thing over and over for sometimes hours. So it's not that fun to watch. I've tried to blast through a lot of different tools today that I use, that I've discovered, that are just open up a whole. For me, they open up, a new horizon every time I find an instrument that is so different from anything I've ever seen. This instrument spiral that I was showing you, what a crazy way to create music. It may not be your favorite kind of music, but what you learn to do is you learn to enjoy both the creativity that goes into these instruments, and then just a different way of listening. So hopefully I've become a better listener. Okay, we're getting close to being done. I'm going to play the video one more time. I really appreciate everybody showing up and supporting Community Rights US today. This is an ongoing endeavor. Technology and streaming and doing things during COVID, we're finding our way. It's an adventure, and hopefully we can all embrace it. Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna run the video and sign off. Love to everybody. And for some reason, OBS is not showing up. So if you guys can override me on your end, go ahead, because my program has disappeared.
Did you know it's illegal for local governments to pass laws that protect their communities from controversial corporate activities like oil pipelines, genetically modified crops, fracking, and clear-cut logging?
Did you know that corporations have more constitutionally protected rights than people do?
Enter the community rights movement.
Since 1999, 200 towns, cities, and counties in 9 states have passed locally enforceable laws that ban specific harmful corporate activities and put decision-making back in the hands of local people.
We want to bring this incredibly successful community-based strategy to every community in this country.
We've assembled an amazing network of people and organizations to provide communities with the support and training that they need to run successful community rights campaigns.
Our work transcends conventional single-issue activism. We think of it as a rights-based strategy, which allows progressives and conservatives to have a much easier time coming together to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents and the local environment. Community rights lawmaking can protect our right to clean water and safe food, our right to free and fair elections, our right to living wage jobs, and our right to a renewable energy future.
But this movement is about more than just reclaiming our local lawmaking. It is also about catalyzing a profound culture shift.
Imagine the possibilities in your community if more and more of your neighbors and coworkers could envision themselves as taking an active role in the governance of their own communities.
We are, in fact, we the people. That is where our ultimate power and authority resides.
Your contribution will greatly expand the reach of the community rights movement.
Thank you for your support and for sharing our fundraising campaign with others.